Day 516 of the Trump administration, and we have breaking news from the Associated Press tonight about those migrant children on the border taken from their families. The AP puts it this way, quote, Trump administration officials have been sending babies and other young children forcibly separated from their parents at the U.S.-Mexico border to at least 3 what are called tender age shelters in South Texas, the Associated Press has learned. We will have more on that later on in this broadcast. Meantime, the president remains firm about sticking to the zero-tolerance policy of separating these families at the border. He said this tonight, quote, Homeland Security Secretary Nielsen did a fabulous job yesterday at the press conference explaining security at the border and for our country, while at the same time recommending changes to obsolete and nasty laws which force family separation. We want heart and security in America. Secretary Nielsen was treated to a less enthusiastic review when she chose to dine tonight in Washington at a Mexican restaurant, of all places.
Shame on Nielsen, shame on Trump. 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 Shame on Nielsen, shame on Trump.
The secretary was escorted out to a waiting SUV. The immigration crisis at the U.S. southern border is testing the relationship between the president and his party. The pictures of migrant children taken from their parents are fueling new fears among Republicans about the impact on voters in November. Tonight, the president met with House Republicans at the Capitol to discuss pending immigration bills and then some, including a possible solution to end family separation. The president heard not a single voice in opposition. A few House Democrats were there to make sure the president knew how they felt.
Quit separating the children. Quit separating the kids. They're separating the children. Mr. President, don't you have kids?
Again, the president of the United States being, in effect, heckled by members of Congress and the other party tonight. Extraordinary sight on the Hill. Congressman Billy Long of Missouri was in that GOP meeting, sent out this photo of it via Twitter. The president gave his brief assessment as he left the Hill.
President, if you believe
Great meeting. These are laws that have been broken for many years, decades, but we had a great meeting. Thank you very much.
NBC News is reporting the president told House GOP that he's backing their effort to pass an immigration bill and essentially, quote, gave his endorsement to 2 bills, one by House Judiciary Chairman Bob Goodlatte, Republican of Virginia, that's popular with immigration hardliners, and a second compromise measure that reflects a deal between conservatives and moderates, both of which House leaders are likely to put on the floor Thursday. The compromise bill does reverse Trump's zero-tolerance policy. A vote on the bills, again, expected later this week. We'll see. The Senate is also trying to work out legislation to quickly end the crisis at the border. Utah Senator Orrin Hatch, along with 11 of his GOP colleagues, written to Attorney General Jeff Sessions to stop family separations until such time as Congress can pass a law. Senate Democrats insist it's up to the president to end this.
Have a heart for a change. Take that goddamn pen of yours and do away with this horrendous, inhumane policy of yours that rips children from the arms of their parents.
Earlier today, it became clear the president does not favor the kind of quick fix he alone can bring about with a simple phone call. Here is part of his speech to the National Federation of Independent Businesses.
We don't want people pouring into our country. We want them to come in through the process, through the legal system, and we want ultimately a merit-based system. People that come in violate the law, they endanger their children in the process, and frankly, they endanger all of our children. You see what happens with MS-13? I don't want judges, I want border security. These countries that we give tremendous foreign aid to in many cases, they send these people up, and they're not sending their finest. Does that sound familiar? Remember I made that speech and I was badly criticized? Oh, what's so terrible what he said. Turned out I was 100% right. That's why I got elected.
And before that speech, there was this from the president's Twitter feed. Democrats are the problem. They don't care about crime and want illegal immigrants, no matter how bad they may be, to pour into and infest our country like MS-13. They can't win on their terrible policies, so they view them as potential voters. Meanwhile, the government agencies on the front lines at the border, the Department of Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, today said that since May 5th, over 2,300 kids have been separated from their parents. There's another crisis emerging. Immigration courts on the border now overflowing. Look at this. This photo is from a hearing today at the federal building in Brownsville, Texas. Immigration advocates are calling what's happening here mass trials, where parents often plead to be reunited with their children. They point to this picture published by the website The Intercept. Members of Trump's administration are continuing to take the heat for their boss's decisions. We want to show you the acting head of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, better known by the more robust-sounding acronym of ICE. He is about to retire, and during an interview with Wolf Blitzer earlier today, he might have been wishing he already had.
Is this new zero-tolerance policy that the president has supported, that the attorney general announced, is it humane?
I think it's the law. As a law enforcement,
it may be the law,
look,
it's the policy, but is it humane?
I think it's the law, and I'm a law enforcement. I must follow the law.
Let's bring in our leadoff panel on a Tuesday night from Washington. Philip Rucker, Pulitzer Prize-winning White House bureau chief for The Washington Post. Jill Colvin, White House reporter for The Associated Press. And here in New York, John Heilman, co-author of Game Change and Double Down and co-host of The Circus on Showtime, in addition to being a veteran journalist himself. Jill, a lot of your reporting today painted a portrait up to and including the existence of these tender age centers tonight, but painted a portrait of a president going it alone.
Absolutely. This is a president right now who, he's actually, I think, a little bit torn here. On one hand, this is a president who feels like he is under attack, who feels like he's going into the midterm elections and that immigration is his issue. He's told folks around him that he's worried that the lack of progress on the wall is going to make him look, quote, weak, and that he feels like this is a winning issue for him. If he's able to hammer this going into the midterms, it's something that makes his base very excited. It's something that's going to help them turn out. It's going to be something that's beneficial to him. At the same time, the president spoke very briefly this evening, to members of Congress. As you said, he didn't take questions. He was very meandering. He talked about a number of different things. Sources in the room have told my colleagues and I. But Trump did at one point during that conversation acknowledge, he said that he had been spoken to by his eldest daughter, Ivanka Trump, and that she had told him that this was a potentially negative issue for him and that he worried that it might, quote, look bad and that there was a political downside to this. And so it seems we're at a moment right here where the president is acknowledging that this is something that might have some kind of negative impact on him.
And Phil Rucker, in the midst of this, the president goes down to Capitol Hill to meet with the home team. What can you tell us about that gathering?
Well, first of all, Brian, it's been a remarkable day because the president is trying to wish people would pretend like he has nothing to do with what's happening at the border. He's blaming it on Congress. He's demanding that Congress pass a law to change the policy that his own administration has implemented. He's a guy who ran on I alone can fix it, and now he's saying he can't do anything to fix it, even though he can. So he goes to Capitol Hill tonight for this closed-door meeting with Republicans, House Republicans, and he leaves them not sure which of the two immigration bills they're considering he actually supports. He said, I support you. He said he wants to change this policy. He talked about how bad the family separation has been, but he did not give any clear direction or game plan for Republicans to legislatively fix what's happening, what's playing out hour by hour at the border. And he gave sort of a meandering performance and at one point attacked Mark Sanford, an incumbent Republican congressman who just lost his primary campaign in South Carolina. Sanford was not in the room, but Trump went after him in front of his colleagues, called him a nasty guy, and even drew some boos from some of the members of Congress. This is what people in the room were telling my colleague Josh Dawsey, and that's a pretty remarkable moment for the president on the home team.
John Heilman, a few anonymous boos from the back of the room is the closest thing the president faced today to any pushback with the letter R after it. I want to show you part of the night that unfolded on cable television, and it's been a wild one. This is first two surrogates for Trump, Steve Cortez and Corey Lewandowski from tonight.
If you come across our border without permission, you are an invader. There's no other word to describe it.
So why do you use the word
Aaron,
invaders?
the
They're not
children are
coming
the
with
victims.
guns. They're coming because they want to be
I'm not
part
talking
of
about
this
the
country,
children.
not
I'm
because
talking
they
about
want
their
to destroy
parents.
it.
I read today about a 10-year-old girl with Down syndrome who was taken from her mother and put in a cage. I read about did you say want to a 10-year-old with Down syndrome being taken from her mother?
Pick anything you want out, but
John, that's what passes for the cable news discourse this evening.
Yeah. It's been a tough day, and it's been a tough since this story started. It's been a tough thing for everyone, I think, to absorb and to get their heads around. And I think what you saw there in Corey Lewandowski and what you saw there with this other Trump surrogate is the fact that, and Rachel was talking about this earlier on our air tonight, and Phil Rucker talked about it earlier on our air also. The Trump administration wants this fight. Everything about this right now, so far, they have enjoyed. They like the liberal outrage. They like the mainstream outrage. They like that this is a fight that they are courting, and we've seen reporting about it in the New York Times and elsewhere. This is an issue that Trump wants to run on. This is an issue that, and I think he's wrong about the politics, and I'll say why in a second, but they are enjoying this. This is not a moment of from tension in the White House. This is not a moment of unease. This is not a moment of conflict. This is not a moment where the president's sitting around, I think, in a state of profound ambivalence about what's going on. These are the politics that he wants right now. I think that the pictures we're about to see, when there's the pictures, they've already been devastating for the administration, I think. But when we see these tender age shelters, as they're calling them, babies and toddlers in similar kinds of facilities we've seen already, the pictures they have been explicitly hiding from us for days, those pictures are going to be horrible. You're right that Republicans did not confront him in that meeting, but we are now seeing Republican senators sending the president letters and putting this on his doorstep. We are now seeing Republican governors saying they will not send or are pulling back National Guard from the border. And finally, I think that we saw Stephen Miller today in the New York Times saying this is a 90-10 issue for the president. If you define this as secure borders versus insecure borders and open borders, it's a 90-10 issue. The president's on the right side. The way this issue is unfolding is not like that right now. It's not close to a 90-10 issue because this is not a discussion about secure borders anymore. This is a discussion about child abuse and the combination of the photographs and the fact that his party is, for the first time, I believe, really, starting in kind of a significant way to turn against him. Maybe not as loudly as we would like them in some cases, or to his face, but at least we're seeing Republican senators, Republican governors, as I said a second ago. The Trump, the amen chorus that the party has become for him is really nervous about this right now. And I think that what they are going to discover is that this is not a 90-10 issue for them at all. And in fact, that they are on the wrong side of this issue politically, and they are misplaying this horribly, in addition to being grotesque in the kind of morals and decency department.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.